Good evening. This is Maestro with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Ashes of Typhon. Our first player is going to be PieOfReckoning, which is actually a great name, playing as the infiltrating Lictor Alpha, an assassin melee hero. Can be very tanky too. His opponent, can't see him that well, but it's going to be TheCrydd, playing as the Warlock. The Warlock is an Eldar melee hero. He kind of splits himself between melee tanking and spellcasting. Depends a little bit on how you choose to kit him out. Alright then, so one new thing that's going on is that the newest version of Elite Mod has actually just been released today. I will still be casting a backlog of a few Elite Mod 2.9.2 replays from that's basically the previous version, since I still have a few replays I want to cast from that, as well as 0 replays from the newest version of Elite Mod. It does also mean I will be a little bit low on replays, since all of the replays that Indrid sent me will not be able to be watched for a while once I do the upgrade. And although he sent me a lot, and I could cast from the old version, I'm not going to do that forever. I'm actually going to upgrade to the new version of Elite Mod pretty soon. But anyway, let's just get into this game. Double Dire Avengers are going to start shooting down in ranged at the Hormagaunts. Oh man, slow start today. Hormagaunts unfortunately just going to have to back off there. Didn't get a whole lot of value in that engagement, just tanked a bunch of range fire and had to retreat. Lost 4 models in the process, although things could probably be pretty tough for the Hormagaunts with this Warlock around. Right there, he knocks them down. A lot of ranged fire reduces the Hormagaunts' health to about 60% before they're able to get into melee. However, they do finally get into melee. They also have the support of the Lictor Alpha, or maybe it's the other way around. He's trying to just kite them, but ultimately I think it's not working. Okay, he tries to lead them to the Howling Banshees, and I guess at this point I think this actually does work, but I also feel that he really paid for it. Unfortunately, the Banshees haven't been upgraded yet, so they don't have Warshout either, so the Lictor Alpha was also kind of ignoring them, and ultimately I don't feel that engagement went particularly well for the Krydd at all. Are we even going to see a Flesh Hook on this remaining Dire Avenger model? No. I know that Flesh Hook was used earlier. I don't think he had enough mana or energy for Flesh Hook in that case. So I actually think this so far feels like a rough start for the Krydd. The Krydd has upgraded with 1 power generator on his natural power farm. Also put a node on a contested power farm. Always risky to do that. We are going to see the bash attempt, or rather it looks like PieOfReckoning did not properly queue up his orders. Sent the Termagants here, probably even did that, well, he probably did that without having vision of it, so he didn't see the node yet, and he hasn't recognized his mistake yet. Lictor Alpha looks like he got a decap on the natural requisition point for the Krydd. One of the things that's also going to be tough here is that the Krydd really doesn't have much of an army compared to PieOfReckoning. He only has the 3 Tier 1 squads, no Tier 1.5 squads yet. And it looks like he's really delaying upgrades on his Tier 1 squads as well. Instead, he put down quite a bit of power. So it's like he's willingly starting off on the back foot, but he's got to be doing something that's going to compensate for that. Dire Avengers, looks like they might be able to mostly focus down. Oh, I see. I didn't see those flanking Hormagaunts, but that does explain just the mass retreat. Overall, still a pretty rough start from PieOfReckoning. Sorry, from the Krydd. PieOfReckoning doing quite a bit better. He does have a squad of Raveners out. He does have those Spore Mines as well. Part of this is actually the fact that he did get a less power-intensive... Well, no, actually my wording there is not correct. He did not buy as much power, and he was able to use the resources from not buying as much power up front the way the Krydd did to get more units out on the field. And in my personal opinion, I would say that the kind of the handling of the Tier 1 economy, I do think that PieOfReckoning has a better end of it. But it looks like the Krydd's plan, oh wow. So, I mean, here we see Krydd's plan revealed. Up until I saw Tier 2 started, I really did not understand why he was basically making the purchase choices that he did, or I guess to be more exact, the purchase choices that he didn't. No Tier 1.5 unit, no upgrades on the Warlock, no upgrades on any of his Tier 1 squads either. So the plan there was a Tier 2 rush. So I do think that this is a bit of a risky approach. Like, if I had to pick, I personally think it would be safer to go for a longer tier 1 than a short tier 1. And when I say a longer tier 1, I mean longer than standard. Like getting even 5 squads, say, I actually feel that's like less risky than getting only 3 squads. But we'll see how it works out for the Crydd. Map control is pretty significantly in favor of PieOfReckoning, and I'd say has been for most of this game. And that's part of that consequence of the Crydd going for this long, or rather this short tier 1 in order to rush to tier 2. Banshees, I mean, the thing is, Banshees are actually really having trouble functioning without either aspect, because one of their key roles is actually not just as a melee unit, but as a control unit with their War Shout, which you use to control other melee units. And there were times when he tried to have the Banshees intercept the Hormagaunts, but they weren't quite as effective as they normally would be without that War Shout. So Warlock gonna try to get into melee with the Termagants. Howling Banshees get in there too. One model goes down. We're going to see another squad of Hormagaunts though, so that scares off the Howling Banshees since they're at less than half of their health. Hormagaunts also at less than half of their health, and you really need to be careful about this Dire Avenger rangefire. So Dire Avenger rangefire, certainly from 2 squads. Nothing to sneeze at, and here is that Falcon coming out on the field. So in keeping with the fact that the Crydd chose to get... I think that the Falcon is the most logical choice that he could have made, since he went for that fast tier 2. To really capitalize on rushing to tier 2, you want a vehicle. And out of the vehicles, the Falcon's going to be able to come out much faster on the field than a Wraith Lord because it's a much lower power investment. But I'm wondering just how effective this is really going to be. He's already conceded almost 200 victory points from the idea of this fast tier 2. And he's going to probably get a full generator bash here, but he needs to keep up with the micro to make sure it actually happens. Like, I would even prefer that the Falcon does not target the capillary tower and instead really just focuses on the power generator. Because I don't feel that this... If anything, now it's looking like he's not going to get much of a power bash. Only gets the single generator. Venom Brood is already out. And in my personal opinion, I think this was very much a failed tier 2 rush. I mean, clearly he hasn't lost the game yet, but I don't really like... Oh! Venom Brood, however, in a huge amount of trouble. Alright, looks like they will get out of there alive. A little bit of a misplay by PieOfReckoning. Meanwhile, the Tyrant Guard is out. Going to be taking a lot of damage from the Howling Banshees, though. I mean, Tyrant Guard already at half of its hit points. I think it's time for it to start using the ability that gives it vehicle armor and makes it start healing. But instead, he just tanks it out, waits out the Howling Banshees. Howling Banshees, I was wondering, where did they go? They got inside the Falcon. That's where they have to be. If anything, I'm a little disappointed that the Dire Avengers didn't get in the Falcon, too. And I still feel that the Crydd is very much on the back foot in this particular engagement. Yeah, Howling Banshees, they're in trouble. Oh, I think they lost their Exarch. You know, a Lictor Alpha has gotten the Feeder Tendrils, and this is a war gear that, if I'm looking at this, this is one of those things where I'm pretty sure Feeder Tendrils have been changed since the last time I played the game. I'm pretty sure the last time I played the game, or actually not the last time, but basically the 2.5 years ago, I'm pretty sure that, or maybe more than 2.5 years ago, but there was definitely at some point when I'm pretty sure Feeder Tendrils healed the Lictor for 2% of its maximum health. Because I remember the Feeder Tendrils always being a really, really oppressive war gear. In that they gave the Lictor Alpha so much sustain, since he does have rather fast melee attacks. And it was something that made him particularly difficult for other heroes to duel. So he would win out head-to-head on a lot of 1v1s based on the health regeneration that he would get from those Feeder Tendrils. The only war gear for the Lictor Alpha, though, so he's not particularly tanky at the moment without having an armor upgrade. Although, I mean, the Feeder Tendrils definitely lend some tankiness from just the health regeneration he gets. Spore Mines coming in. Grenades going in as well, so it's going to deter the approach by the Spore Mines. But here are the Rippers. Just going to kite those Rippers and kite the rest of the army. Howling Banshees are going to go in here. Can't suppress the Rippers, but they will suppress the Hormagaunts. So now we see that effectiveness of the War Shout for the Banshees' use as a control unit. Hormagaun's actually in a huge amount of trouble. This probably is a dead Hormagon squad. So very late on, like, even a potential retreat there after they had gotten knocked down. Venom Brood is in a lot of trouble. And the Howling Banshees have actually been getting quite a lot of good value at this point. Here is that Lictor Alpha, though. Lictor Alpha can be very impressive. Ravener Brood out here, meanwhile. Ultimately not going to do very significant damage to the Falcon. Just Raveners do have standard piercing damage on their ranged weapons. Piercing damage is almost negligible against vehicles. So, I just looked at the VPs, and it's over a 300-point victory lead for the Crydd. Sorry, for PieOfReckoning. Man, I'm just not on it today. Why do I even pretend like these aren't normal things, actually? I do this all the time, you know. 300-point victory lead for PieOfReckoning. So, ultimately, I still just don't like... And look who's getting to Tier 3 first. PieOfReckoning. So ultimately, I don't endorse the fast Tier 2 from the Crydd. He's now behind. He can't even afford Tier 3 yet. He doesn't even have either of his natural... he doesn't have the following 2 natural requisition points, but he does have this one. This one's even at plus 30, which means it's matured for PieOfReckoning. That needs to be taken back. And I think part of what's difficult is that since he chose to get the Falcon, any transport is a unit that it has synergy with infantry units, but what that also means is that you are less able to spread out your army more to control the map. It really puts you into a playstyle of keeping, well, at least 2 of your units together, since you want the transport and 1 of your infantry squads, but usually more optimally, you don't just want 1, you want at least 2, if not 3. In the case of the Falcon, obviously you want the Dire Avengers for their repairs. And that's true for many other races where you want scouts in a Razorback, you want guardsmen in a Chimera. But I think what's also particularly unique about the Falcon is that it also does have synergy with the Banshees, both as a way of getting them out, preventing them from taking too much damage, or even getting them in. The Banshees will approach, and we even just see the immediate retreat from the Venom Brood, even before the Banshees were in range. It looks, certainly from a spectator point of view, it looks a little unnecessary, but if we also just think about how things could have happened there, it was actually very possible that the Crydd could have got those Banshees into range with the Venom Brood. He could have used Fleet of Foot, then used War Shout, and then the Venom Brood would be in a huge amount of trouble, and he decided he just didn't want to deal with any of that. Lictor Alpha is going to discover the Webway Gate, and he's going to take that out, although he does kind of do that a little bit slowly. But he just wants to make sure that the Crydd will not have that mobility. If anything, I feel PieOfReckoning has actually been playing extremely passively, since he, in a way, it's almost like he kind of rushed to Tier 3. And he concedes a little bit of a field from rushing to Tier 3, because now the Crydd actually has a bigger army. The Crydd, choosing to stay in Tier 2, actually chooses to get a Wraith Lord, so he's gone for a very vehicle-heavy play, which... What I'm worried about that is I'm worried that it will make his army composition even more centralized, and that it will be harder to split things off, because with 2 vehicles, he definitely needs repairs. And like we see that he's actually has, despite winning this engagement, he has the VPs ticking against him. He hasn't even captured the contested victory point, even though positionally he is in control of the map. But in terms of like what he actually has captured, he still doesn't. So obviously I'm being very critical of the Crydd here, and now he's in a situation where he has a Carnifex to deal with. Carnifex has been upgraded with the Venom Cannon, Yeah, that makes perfect sense given what he's up against. Although, I mean, there's also the argument that if you did get a Thornback Carnifex, that would do a lot better against the Wraith Lord if they ever did get into a head-to-head melee fight. Howling Banshees going to slow down those Hormagaunts again, but they're being deterred very much by this Lictor Alpha with those feeder tendrils. So we do see another Hormagaunt Brood out on the field, and the Warlock from TheCrydd, I did see him actually with this Witchblade of Turnos for a while. I don't think I've ever actually seen him use it. Ravener's in a bit of trouble, but they will retreat out of there. Tyrant Guard, meanwhile, is going to disrupt the Dire Avengers a little bit. And now the Tyrant Guard is in a very forward position. It's in a lot of trouble. Whoa! Take a look at that. There goes the Falcon. Goodbye. Use from the Bioplasma, from the Carnifex. It's one of those things that I practically forgot existed. So it's still PieOfReckoning with this massive victory point lead. We now have the double Wraith Lords from TheCrydd, and he's getting Bright Lance weapons on both of them. So the Bright Lance obviously just really wants to try to repress this Carnifex with the double Bright Lance. Each Bright Lance is not that powerful, and with this Wraith Lord going in so far, it might actually be in a lot of trouble. I mean, if anything, he needs to pull back this one Wraith Lord, otherwise it's going to die, which it doesn't have to. That Wraith Lord did not have to die there. Oh man, and another Bioplasma going in, knocking over these Dire Avengers who are themselves low on hit points. And the Carnifex actually ends up going down in the end. In fact, I'm not surprised that the Carnifex went down, given that it was against double Bright Lance Wraith Lords. But that one Wraith Lord did not have to die. It could have moved back and kited the Carnifex, and then the other Wraith Lord could continue to do damage to it. So, a little disappointed in that regard. And it's still a massive victory point lead for PieOfReckoning. Squad of Howling Banshees is going to take the natural victory point away from PieOfReckoning, so this might be one of the few times. I don't even, he's not even going to get the cap here. He can't afford to risk losing the Banshees. These Banshees have done fairly well, at least in the sense that they've been around a while. They've gotten enough kills that they're at level 4, and that's something that he definitely wants to keep alive. Dire Avenger's also going to be at level 4, so we are seeing leveled squads. Dire Avengers coming out of the webway. Ravener's missing their jump. Grenades going in, missing too. And he just ran into melee range with a Lictor Alpha, so a little bit of flubs on this particular engagement. Ravener's finally going to have to get out of there. If anything, I think the Lictor stays in here, and I think this is a one fight for PieOfReckoning. But it's finally a single cap in favor of TheCrydd, and he's actually about to get a double, crippling poison on the Howling Banshees. Why is that the first time I've seen that? I feel like, I don't know if I just missed it, but I feel like I should have seen that before. The Wraith Lord is here, actually completely uncountered in this particular engagement, cleaving through these Hormagaunts. So one of these squads of Hormagaunts needs to go, or it will go down. Oh, but here is the Venom Brood. The Venom Brood being there. Oh no, look at this Wraith Lord. It's being slowed. I'm pretty sure that's by the Rippers. This is actually pretty rough for the Wraith Lord. This is possibly a dead Wraith Lord because I don't see any support coming for the Wraith Lord. That being said, the damage that's going into it is coming in a little bit slowly, but man, this just persistent slowing from the Rippers is so painful. He gets it around a line of sight blocker, which means the Venom Brood will have to travel more, maybe not. Okay, here is the attempted save. Hey, Howling Banshees need to go into melee with the Venom Brood, and they do get in, and that just scares them off, and okay, the Wraith Lord is saved, not bad. Wraith Lord level 3, by the way. Warlock level 3 as well. Lictor Alpha also level 3. 3 is just like the magic number today, except on these squads that are level 1 and 2. Howling Banshees all the way in here. I think, yeah, they can take out the Lictor Alpha there. As much as the Lictor Alpha can actually tank a bit there by just with the health regeneration he gets from the... Oh no, Banshees might go down as well. Hormagaunts also in trouble. Hormagaunts will go down, and Banshees I think will make it. So wins for the Crydd, and Crydd is now finally going into Tier 3. Here, is this going to be a Ripper Call-In or Venom Brood? No, neither one. We're seeing that, and I actually really like that. The combination of the... we're going to see a Ravener Alpha Squad, not a Ravener Alpha Squad, just a Ravener Squad go down to some bundled up grenades. I like the use of that particular call-in with the Termagants and the Hormagaunts, since that worked well, kind of like nicely as a flank, and would be much more effective against the squads from the Crydd, chasing off the squads, leaving the Wraithlord isolated. But here is that support from the Wraithlord. Are we going to, from the Warlock? Are we going to see the Witchblade of Kurnos activate? There it is. Does quite a bit of damage to the Wraithlord, scares off the Venom Brood. There's only the squad of Rippers left, but I mean, well, alone the Rippers can't do much. Certainly, if they were supported, they could slow the Wraithlord. Alright, the Crydd is starting to come back into this game. He inflicted quite a few losses on PieOfReckoning. VPs, although still significantly in favor of PieOfReckoning, have at least been, well, PieOfReckoning has at least lost some of his VPs, now down to 237 instead of still having his in the 400s. The Crydd, in a way, with a he's at a compositional advantage given the fact that he still has a Wraithlord. Needs to actually repair it though, but I guess he just wants to put it in a position where he can support the Warlock taking this victory point. And I'm totally wrong. He's gonna move those Dire Avengers away from the Wraithlord before they can start doing any repairs. Looks like Howling Banshee's going to be able to clean up most of those Rippers. Destructor goes out on the Termagants. So the Crydd's army is kind of blobbed up in this section of the map, with the Lictor Alpha just capturing the contested victory point. So it's actually a 1-to-1 with PieOfReckoning having the contested victory point. My guess is right now he's actually going to be looking for a back cap on the Crydd's natural victory point. Since we're now, if anything, it's like he's now starting to play more of the victory point game. And at this point, I'm actually feeling like I'm starting to see the army compositions start to go in favor of the Crydd. Obviously, this Wraithlord has been deterring much of an approach by the Tyrannid army, since the only thing that can do any significant damage to it is the Venom Brood, and very frequently the Venom Brood have been tied up by the Howling Banshees. Hormagaunts also really having trouble getting value at this point because of how often, well, by how often I mean exactly 2 times that I've seen that the Warlock is using the Ethereal Slash on them. So the Crydd is able to maintain control of PieOfReckoning's natural victory point. And now we're seeing a squad of Seer Council come out for the Crydd, and that's a squad, I mean, we've already seen the Howling Banshees get a very, very high amount of value. I feel that the Howling Banshees have been one of the core units for the Crydd. They've done a lot. If he were to lose them, he would be at a major, major loss and would probably even have to replace them. So Seer Council are going to serve a very similar purpose, and I didn't realize that they were already so close here. I mean, they're just going right into base. They're going to start getting hit by those hive nodes in base. And we went from PieOfReckoning having a massive victory point lead to the Crydd pushing PieOfReckoning all the way back into base. But guess what? Here is the Lictor Alpha with a double cap. The Crydd, only with double-digit victory points, is in a lot of trouble at this point. So he has a compositional advantage in fights, but he's still not able to control the map well enough to really achieve the win condition here. Lictor Alpha is going to get the natural victory point back, but the contested is going to be traded back over. Crydd going to take that back, so, but that still means it should be a 2-to-1 cap for PieOfReckoning. And one of the things that is strange about this is that Eldar have often been known for their ability to control the map with the amount of nobility that they have, having passively faster units than basically most of the other races in the game, as well as having Fleet of Foot being standard on many infantry squads. So Seer Council are going to take the natural victory point for the Crydd. We see the Lictor Alpha approaching. you know, even with the Seer Council only having about 70% of their hit points, I feel like they would win. I'm actually kind of surprised to see that. Oh, that wasn't on purpose. That was the Menacing Visage ability from the Lictor Alpha actually forcing a retreat from the Seer Council. Very, very smart. I thought that TheCrydd had just retreated those out of his own personal fear, when I had actually felt a squad of Seer Council, even with 70% hit points, I think they would win against the Lictor Alpha, even against the Feeder Tendrils. So I don't think he even realizes, or at least he just hasn't really responded to the backcap by the Lictor Alpha. Howling Banshees, meanwhile, also in a lot of trouble. If PieOfReckoning is paying attention and the Howling Banshees retreat through his path, he could actually finish them off. Should be like a melee attack or two and then a flesh hook, but he's not even going to attempt it. I'm a little disappointed in that too. I felt like he actually could have killed the Howling Banshees there. Meanwhile, I missed the death of a Carnifex. Or rather, I caught the death of the Carnifex, but I missed most of the fight. So the Lictor Alpha is now mostly just being a backcapping unit. Eldritch Storm hitting pretty much nothing. Okay, it actually did kill a squad. I believe it killed the Hormagaunts there, so it killed a squad of Hormagaunts. At this point, I don't even feel like killing the Hormagaunts is that big of a deal. I don't think PieOfReckoning even needs to replace them that badly. If anything, I'd say don't get Hormagaunts. They've just been getting torn apart by the Ethereal Slash, and TheCrydd actually now looking like he could be winning this game. The victory points are now actually pretty close, 109 to 59, with TheCrydd once again pushing PieOfReckoning back into his base. We're seeing the constant backcapping by the Lictor Alpha. That's pretty much all the Lictor Alpha has been doing for like the past 3 minutes. I'm still really disappointed that he did not even have the presence of mind to attempt the kill on the Howling Banshees. I mean, I think his attention was up here, but at least from a spectator point of view, it was a big opportunity that he missed. So Tyranna formation, gonna knock over some Dire Avengers. This squad of Dire Avengers in a lot of trouble. 2-1 victory point cap for TheCrydd. And unfortunately, PieOfReckoning, he does have the Lictor Alpha here. Finally starts the cap, but it might be too late. This Dire Avenger Exarch in a little bit of trouble and does just go down there. So 1-1 now, 78 to 59. Lictor Alpha in a lot of trouble though. And the Wraith Lord will take down the Lictor Alpha. And in spite of everything, I do think that TheCrydd is going to end up taking this game. Seer Council here are probably going to have to go soon. Ooh, do we see the Neurothrope here? We do. It's scaring off the Seer Council. However, at this point, I think TheCrydd has done enough to take the game just on the basis of this. He's going to get his natural victory point back. He does have the contested one. And I don't think PieOfReckoning has enough map control to get back out there and take everything back. Yeah, we're going to see he's just going to get his squad of Termagants killed here, trying to finish off this cap. Unfortunately for TheCrydd, the Wraith Lord was stopped attacking in melee for whatever reason. That is part of the tricky issue when you do get a Bright Lance Wraith Lord. It actually defaults to range stance. It looks like he's going to win the game anyway, but you know, he could have killed that squad of Hormagaunts right there. Or was it a squad of Termagants? It was a squad of Termagants. Grenade goes in. PieOfReckoning not even really responding to that. A little surprising to see this end result here with TheCrydd actually taking it, given the massive advantage that PieOfReckoning had for quite a while. But if there's one thing I do have to say for TheCrydd, I think his use of Howling Banshees was very good in this game. And I think that's one of the things that really gave him the victory. So, that is the end of that game. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.